Yes.
Call meeting order. Roll call, please.
Delmeyer,
Here.
Kiesling,
Here.
Linkhammer,
Here,
Miller,
Here.
Reich.
Sure. Let's see, one citizen, he's not here to talk to us about anything, so move on. Consent agenda, anything else for separate discussion? Motion to move, so moved. Second. Call roll.
Miller,
Aye.
Reich,
Aye.
Delmeyer,
Aye.
Kiesling,
Aye.
Linkhammer.
aye,
Consent agenda is approved 5-0. The old business you tabled ordinance 4/2025 ordinance amending chapter fireworks first reading. Yeah, update on this, Beth.
Pretty much what we updated on this agenda item was the hours of use. That was a question from the council. Limits the hours of use between the hours of 9 AM and 11 PM.
Actually, state code.
Matching state code.
I'll make the motion to approve ordinance number 4/2025.
I'll second that.
Discussion.
Yes, I have a couple good discussion points. If we hold to this 9 to 11, are we gonna enforce that, or at 1 o'clock in the morning, are we still gonna need to be here and fireworks go off? Sorry, Tom.
Yeah, like every year, we will be out there enforcing it, trying to do our best. We've had a lot of discussions about this as far as the concerns of fireworks landing on people's property, the marks they leave, when people go out and do the roads or private property, they try to do it in the park. We'll be out there enforcing it as much as we can on those days. We'll try to stay in time as best as we can.
Sorry, I made you. What's the problem?
So since they're legal, they're not legal, you're not in the park and shoot them off in the
No,
park.
no, they're not. So I believe from last year, or the year before that, we had a problem with somebody, and they were cited for that.
They were doing.
Again, the calls I think we're gonna get is, they're shooting fireworks off, and they're landing in our yard, they're gonna be shooting them off and they're starting fires, and they do it in the middle of the streets, and some of the cul-de-sacs, we've had issues with that, so that's gonna be some of our issues we'll have to take.
I just hope we get some rain.
Could be, but I believe July 4th is on a Friday this year, so Saturday and Sunday could be interesting.
there's no restrictions on what type of fireworks.
Fireworks, so they go out and can afford commercial grade fireworks. Yeah. Here we go.
Thank you, Tom.
Any question?
Anything else? Call roll, please.
Miller,
Aye.
Reich,
Aye.
Delmeyer,
Aye.
Kiesling,
Aye.
Linkhammer.
Aye,
There's a motion to waive the statutory rule.
So moved.
second,
Call roll, please.
Miller,
Aye.
Reich,
Aye.
Delmeyer,
Aye.
Kiesling,
Aye.
Linkhammer.
aye,
Have a motion finally passed and adopt ordinance 4/2025.
So moved.
second,
Final comments?
We don't have much of a choice.
No, we don't.
It's
Here's your appointment. That's all I have to say.
Call roll.
Miller,
Aye.
Reich,
Aye.
Delmeyer,
Aye.
Kiesling,
Aye.
Linkhammer.
aye,
That's approved. New business, the first item is 93/2025, a resolution. Often the mayor to sign a contract with Willows to proceed for the Arrowhead Water Main Looping 2025 project.
Yep, we received the contracts back from McDermott Excavating and reviewed those. So with approval of this item, we'll then execute the contracts and then send out the notice to proceed. And then from there, we'll set up a pre-construction meeting with McDermott Excavating. And then we'll move forward with the Arrowhead Water project. If you have any questions, I'd be happy to.
I'll make a motion to approve resolution number 93 of 2025.
Second. Discussion. Call roll.
Miller,
Aye.
Reich,
Aye.
Delmeyer,
Aye.
Kiesling,
Aye.
Linkhammer.
aye,
Approved 5-0. Resolution 94/2025, resolution awarding and considering bids for the 2025 asphalt roads and trail rehabilitation project.
Yeah, so we actually got 3 bids for this project. Normally we get 1. But Chick-fil-A Excavating was the low bidder at $825,141. Just as a note, the majority of the work is the asphalt paving portion of work. And that subcontractor they have listed as River City Paving, who has done all the asphalt work in this area. on the recent projects that have involved Oakleys. Unless there's any questions, MSA recommends, awarding bid to Jig Fry Excavating.
Hey, did you say they're just gonna lay on top of what's already?
It's gonna vary for, each location. So Asbury Road, where we're doing from Radford to the Eastern City Limits, are actually gonna mill out 3 inches and put 3 inches back. Most of the other subdivisions, we're gonna just mill, the header locations where we connect to existing pavement or driveways, and then we're just gonna overlay the existing pavement and most of the other subdivisions.
I'm sure you'll be on top of this. I just want to make sure there's no gaps or tripping hazards or any of the stuff we might be liable for, because it's got to be spelled out exactly what we want.
Yep.
Okay, thank you.
And maybe is the around Old House Pond, is that asphalt or is that gonna be concrete?
It's going to be asphalt around Old House Pond, and it'll be, they'll just kind of grade this stone that's already there, then like bring in a couple truckloads of rock to level it out. And then pave, I believe it was 3 inches of asphalt for the trail around Old House Pond.
Okay, and then the overlay, how thick is the overlay on the trails?
On the trails, it's just 1.5 inches if it's the existing pavement.
Thank you. I'll make a motion to approve resolution 94 of 2025, bring the bid Jig Fry.
Second.
Motion second, discussion. Hello?
Miller,
Aye.
Reich,
Aye.
Delmeyer,
Aye.
Kiesling,
Aye.
Clinkhammer.
I,
That's approved 5-0. Final item is resolution 95 of 2025, approving insurance premium for property liability. Workman's comp insurance services for FY year end June 30, 2026. Should this not Beth?
Yes, sir, it's 2026.
Kevin? Good evening. Hey, oh, sure. Was there any questions or?
Why don't you give a list of some overview of where we're at this year versus last year and maybe some of the options?
Sure, so, current year, expiring term, just under 185. There's two options we outlined here with a couple of different deductibles. Related to the property, the property policy, and then the public officials, which is the directors and officers type policy for public officials. So the first option, excuse me, with the deductible on the property would be to take the existing $2,500 deductible that's for everything except for wind or hail, and increase that to $5,000. That was reducing the property premium from $57,030 to $55,778, which is a $1,252 reduction. So about half of the increase in retention from 2,500 to 5,000 would be. The other option, which is for the management coverage, the public officials liability, that would change the deductible, which is being increased by the carrier due to loss experience that had been seen in the program, which had a historically low deductible, to be perfectly honest. So they took that deductible for renewal at $3,000 to $7,500. So you can do the $7,500 deductible or the $10,000 deductible policy. And going from 7,500 to 10,000 would take the premium from 21,138 to 415. Which I would say that actually makes a lot more sense to take the higher deductible with the premium savings that you return on that. That also then impacts the umbrella, because this policy does sit underneath the umbrella. It would reduce your umbrella premium from $13,350 to $12,621. So that increased deductible on the public officials liability, you would essentially the 10,000 deductible on premium savings on that policy, and the umbrella would more or less offset that additional $2,500 retention.
Question for you. Sure. On the first one that you mentioned, where premium would go, if you went from $2,500 to $5,000 deductible, you said the premium would go down like $1,250.
1,252.
So if we have one claim, that increased deductible would be $2,500, which is twice as much as what I just left the premium alone. That probably doesn't make sense to increase. What are the claims that we submitted this year approximately?
You didn't have any property losses, on the current term.
Okay.
You know, the two prior, so the year prior in 24, you had one claim that was submitted for about 46,000. The year prior to that, one claim for about 57. Just on property, so, and it obviously just depends, right? I mean, we've had lightning strikes, we've had sprinkler system, we've had all kinds of, you know, things that you just never expect. The other side of the property deductible, so actually probably two things I'll bring up. So the higher property deductible at 5,000 would then also impact that wind hail buyback policy that was implemented last year. It would reduce some of the deductibles on some of the buildings because the 5,000 deductible would exceed the 1% of the value that 1% would equal. So it eliminates some of the locations that would have a 1% wind and hail, which then further reduces the values that are being used to rate for that wind hail buyback. So you'll see that wind hail policy goes from 16,436 to 14,667. So there is that additional reduction in the wind hail policy as well, if the intent is to continue to keep that policy going forward. The other thing, you know, and it's not a hard and fast, this is probably more of a, you know, just discussions, the feedback we're getting from the carrier is that they're looking at losses and they're looking at the program saying that the deductibles likely are going to continue to get pushed. So whether we elect to take higher deductibles now or wait until they're forced, it sounds like they're pushing to continue to increase property deductibles. So don't know if that's going to happen next year or subsequent year, but I wouldn't be surprised to see them starting to push for these to come up on the property.
So if I'm reading this right, then if we keep the coverage exactly the way it is right now, it's approximately a 7% increase. Is that what you
Just on, yep.
just under 7?
And that's a little bit misleading because when you look at, you know, there are some increases in exposure. So property has values that are up about 1.5% on the values. General liability had a little bit of an increase on some payroll. The auto kind of looks higher to a larger degree than it really is. 4 of the vehicles that are on the schedule were added, you know, partially through the year. So the premiums on the expiring don't reflect the full term premium of that vehicle, or now it shows a 12-month premium for those. So you're seeing a prorated amount versus a full annual.
Beth, there's every now and then around the monthly financials, I see a charge for insurance for Nationwide at the golf course. What is that for?
Okay, that's probably something we should probably have the policy that we paid, like to Cunningham and Butler for the EMC policy, we pay out up front in July, but the golf course has a separate policy through Nationwide. And what we're seeing here does not include the Nationwide.
Correct.
Because they're on that separate, it's a separate like special golf course policy. And what happened last year, strange enough, in September, the golf course has a dram shop policy. And all the years that we've, you know, had the golf course and had this dram shop, the state gladly accepted the fact that we had a fiscal year insurance policy. Well, they in their rules, they didn't make any change in the administrative law, but in their rules, they're making everybody match their insurance policy to what the dram shop license is. So we had a mid-year switch and prorate the Nationwide policy, and then we pay that on a monthly basis, you know, throughout the year. So that is a little bit of a change from this year to last year, that nationwide policy has gone from being a fiscal year policy like the rest of the city is to, you know, reflect more the length of the license of the liquor license.
Is the nationwide policy through Cottingham?
Yeah, so that actually, last year, that policy renewed on July 1 with everything else. And then out of the blue, in September 2nd, Beth reached out, we weren't even made aware of it either. They simply rewrote the policy to a 9/2 effective date, which is the date of your liquor license. So the state wants those policies to match the liquor license date. We investigated, we pushed back, and they ultimately have determined to this point, they're still not gonna change that. So that policy will now then be reviewing on 9/2 instead.
Do they get the liquor license from us?
So that's,
Yeah.
Yeah.
We approved the liquor license, right? Let's change the date on the liquor license.
no, you can't change the date. We tried that. We also,
That was one of the things.
that's one of the things we did, you know, we said, well, you know, let's change, you know, if you can't. If we have to, you know, match the policy, let's change the, you know, date, and then they won't let you change the date. It's like, okay,
It's just simple. I just trying.
It's silly.
It's
silly.
Kevin, for future planning, where are we at with the age of our roofs and how is that gonna affect premiums in the short term or long term?
Yeah, so. And we may have covered this last year, but I'll reiterate it. So the policy does have, a limitation, for any roofs that are 15 years or older, where they're going to only cover that on an actual cash value basis. So, you know, most of your buildings, thankfully, the important ones are newer, but we're getting close on some, right? So there's this building, obviously, the re-roof of the Meadows, those ones are fine for a little bit longer, but you know, some of the outlying buildings and the other buildings, you know, obviously, Bullet Creek, we're fine on most buildings. Some of the buildings, like maybe at the water treatment and, pump station buildings, things like that, you probably add a little bit.
So I was just wondering if some of those smaller buildings, it would be better to self-insure ourselves for that or start planning ahead on our schedule to replace those. So we're covered.
Yeah, I mean, it's not a question whether you're covered, it's just if you have a wind or hail, if you have a wind or hail loss, you're gonna get a reduced settlement, you're gonna get a replacement less depreciation.
Since we reduce settlement, does that mean as you look at the age, would you reduce the premium then too?
No.
You were better with 30, which.
I wish that was your case for us, that's what the insurance carriers are doing, so. I wish that was the case, and you've probably seen it on your personal insurance with these things that pop up too, so. I wouldn't say go rush to go replace a bunch of books. I mean, your exposure for wind and hail, while it's certainly a possibility, that's not going to be substantial in comparison to what it would cost you to go start to replace a bunch of roofs. So, replacement as they need to be done. But the insurability isn't necessarily going to change, just a matter of how we're going to settle losses. One thing that we didn't put in here, I know we've had some of this in the past, but we kind of outlined it. But just for reference, so keep in mind that EMC program, they do, as part of the Iowa Municipal IAU program. And, depending on how the losses are for the group, they return premiums, they have a dividend, and they've returned premiums. I think in the last 10 years, maybe all of one, I think there was a year in COVID where the program didn't dividend losses were not good. Last year, your 2023 dividend, and I delivered this to Beth probably a month and a half ago. Best dividend we've had in a long, I mean, if you ever actually, was $15,660. So if this program continues to perform well, that you won't know that till we see what happens during the policy year. But it's historically returned a decent dividend.
was the dividend for the year prior, so we haven't made any claims this year that.
So
We should expect
dividend,
another dividend.
dividend gets calculated forward, it'll happen in usually around February, I think, is when we send it out. And it actually, you guys are a little bit of an outlier. The program actually goes forward when full. So, that will calculate early next year based on the 24-25 term.
Okay.
So, just on top of the 15,660, so your 22-23 dividend was $5,305, 21-22 was 2,070. So it's consistently getting some level of return.
And one last question I have is, when's the last time we changed the amount of our umbrella liability? Because as things get more and more expensive, where are we at on umbrella liability?
I have to check. I want to say it was within the last 2 or 3 terms.
Okay, I just wondered, your advice if we're still adequately covering that umbrella?
That's almost an impossible question to answer. So,
Yeah, no, so I mean, just.
yeah,
Yeah,
I would
everything
say
else-
for an organization of this size, the limit is commensurate with what you would see.
Okay,
That
good.
doesn't necessarily mean it's adequate to cover.
No, I just, as long as it's, no, that's what I was looking for. Thank you. I guess I'm of the opinion that we should keep stuff the way it is. I'd be interested what everybody else thinks, but that's what I think.
Discussion or motion?
I think that there's some. In moving to the higher deductibles, I mean, that it's a gamble, but it's something that. And I think as we look at the cost of replacement of anything, it's costing that much more, so to be able to get to those deductibles, it's that much. You're there so much quicker than that, so. If there's something we said on that savings.
We haven't had that many claims. So maybe it would be best to go with the higher deductible.
I guess keep in mind, we did have to claim, it wasn't a property claim, but we had the lawsuit last year from the Hales Mill road folks on their special assessment that, wasn't claimed, into the insurance, and was fairly significant.
Yeah, that's talking about the special assessment suit that ultimately didn't pay out to the claimants, but was still there's actually some recoveries there, but the net amount was just over 15,500 to the carrier for defense investigation expenses and such. So that's the public officials coverage that we're talking about. So yeah, that deductible 7,500 where it's going to be, or 10,000. I think, and you don't, by the way, you don't have to take an increase to property and an increase in the public officials. You could say, if we want to leave the property, for instance, at 2,500 for now, but we want to increase the public officials, or vice versa. So it's not a have to take both.
I'll make a motion to renew the policy as is, estimated premium of $197,302.68.
Second,
A motion second to renew the policy. In resolution 95, 2025, your discussion. Roll please.
Miller, Reich,
aye.
Delmeyer,
Aye.
Kiesling,
Aye.
Clayton.
Next,
That is approved. The report is bridge report. Any comments or motion to accept?
We'll make a motion to accept the report.
I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Karen, just turn please.
I just like to pay tribute to a great founding father that we have passed away. last Saturday, Jim Style. He was one of our original fire department members. He's been on several boards for the city. He's been involved in a lot of aspects in Asbury. He's a great guy. R.I.P. Jim. We will miss you.
Gosh, that was, gonna be my thunder there, but, we do have the, music in the park coming up. And if, no one has ever volunteered to be involved in that, I would urge you, welcome you, issue an invitation. to Those of us that have done, volunteer work for the music in the park, on the 12th. And, that's it.
Right. I had the pleasure of serving with Jim on board and, he will be missed.
Nothing for us.
I was just gonna ask about if you had any more luck with, the monthly reports. I'm assuming that's why there's nothing from Jeremy to.
Yeah, we're working through it. The reports as of last Thursday, when the agenda went out, were missing some significant numbers, and it's like it's just trying to get everything to pull together. As of today, I have a report that is good, but it doesn't break it. The only thing that's missing on this report is it's not breaking things down, like in the general fund, like by public safety and by then public works and parks and stuff. So I got that next step to do, but it probably would be reasonable to and available to give it. And I got the revenues to run right today, and I think we got the cash to run right. So I have Sarah to talk about for another report. So I think I definitely should have reports for the next meeting, but it's just the new software and just trying to, as I'm going through and checking and I see like, why isn't this number here when it's here? So I just couldn't get them out this time. They just weren't right.
So overall, are you very satisfied with the new software?
It's going very well. There's a learning curve and, it's just, moving it over and finding out where another thing is like the deductions for employees for their health insurance. They put them all to a payable. It's like it has to come out someplace and they didn't do it the way they're supposed to, so that has to be reconciled to. That's probably another thing for the financial reports, but overall, I'm very satisfied with the software. Staff had training last week on looking at the financial reports, looking at the accounts payable, and I think it's all moving forward slowly but surely.
And then two other things, when do we let people know about the increase on the, or the electronic,
Everybody got a letter.
Okay.
Mail, and I think 350 signed up for email
okay,
and another 100 and some.
Yeah.
message.
Anybody that got a paper bill received a notice about, signing up for ACH and signing up for electronic billing, so. From the last bill, so if you didn't get that if you're like me and you already have e-bill and ACH.
okay.
And the newsletter's going out here in the next couple of weeks that'll talk about the increase in the refuse as well.
Okay, and then one last thing, what's going on with the video of the equipment that we have had the out loud again? Is there still?
There's a piece of equipment that was been on order and it was supposed to have been shipped last week, but we found out Jim signed for it. But Jim was in Chandler, Arizona, so they expedited it, and so we should be receiving the piece, and so
Okay.
next week we should be back up and running.
Great, thank you.
All right, I really can't say much more about Jim. He is Mr. Asbury. What else to say? There, these 70 years he's lived here and done many things. Going to be missed. All right, Beth, you have anything else?
Nothing for the good of the order?
Motion to adjourn.
So move, second.
All in favor?
Bye.
Opposed? Adjourn.
As long as you already own one.